Hi and welcome back. In this video we're talking about opening and closing files automatically so we don't have to remember to call file.close at the end of every time we want to use a file. So far we've been opening and closing files explicitly, like this, saying file equals open of something, and then at the end file equals file.close. By the way, I'll just say I've copied the code we wrote in the last section, and I've created another file for it, just because I'm going to change it slightly and I don't want us to lose any of the files here. These files again are all on the GitHub, so you can access them if you want, and the link to do that is at the start of this section, the first lecture. So we've been opening and closing files automatically like so, but Python actually has a piece of syntax which is extremely handy for these scenarios. And the scenario that this represents is a pretty general scenario in which we have to do some setup and some teardown. The setup is we have to open the file, and the teardown is that we have to close the file. A setup is just a keyword for something that happens at the start, and a teardown is a keyword or a concept for something that happens at the end. Another example would be opening a database connection at the start, and at the end, closing the database connection. So as you can see, opening and closing things, pretty popular thing, and this is a setup and teardown approach. The construct that we're going to learn about, this piece of syntax that Python offers, is called a with statement. You may have seen this around if you've looked at some Python code before, and they use the with keyword, and they're also known as context managers. Context managers are reasonably advanced concepts, and we're going to look at them more in depth in the next section. We're going to be programming some context managers, but I just wanted to teach you how to use them so you start getting familiar with them, and in the next section everything's going to be much simpler. In addition, they simplify our code greatly and reduce the errors that we can cause by forgetting to close files. So instead of doing this here, we can say with open as file. Then we can do this, and we can do that. That replaces our previous code. Now we do with, then we call the open function, and then we do as file, so that whatever the open function returns goes into this variable. Then we can use that variable. When we reach the end of this indented block, notice the colon at the end there. When we reach the end of the indented block, it automatically closes the file for us. This here is called a context manager, and it doesn't happen by magically. The open function has defined that it can be used with a context manager. So you cannot just do this with anything you want, but you have to define that you want to be able to use a context manager with your stuff. And if you do that, you can start using context managers like so. Again, in the next section, we're going to look at developing and programming our own context managers, but I wanted to show you this scenario in which you can use a context manager without even knowing how it's programmed to simplify your code and make it better. So again, this allows you to open the file at the start and automatically close it at the end. And the closing at the end happens because the open has said that when you reach the end of the block, the file shall close automatically. Okay, there's no magic going on here. The open function is defined to close the file at the end. Now, I'd encourage you to do the same for this file here. Replace it by a context manager, as that's going to give you a little bit more practice implementing this stuff. I hope you managed. Again, all you have to do is put the with at the start and then as the variable. The variable here, file, now gets created as the result of this open. Whatever's indented is going to be in the with, and at the end of the with, the file is going to close automatically, so we don't need file close either. Okay, notice how for JSON load S or dump S, you don't need to do any withs because there's no file to open and close. These things are just going straight into or straight out of strings. So there's nothing to open or close. So that's it. A quick introduction to context managers. And they're called context managers because they help you manage the context of your application in which you now have this file open. And they manage the context by keeping the file open during the context manager and not before it or after it. So that's why they're called context managers. We're going to learn more about them in the next section. That's it for this video. I'll see you on the next one.